Hi, I'm Matthew.
And I'm Dana. Welcome to the Nat 20 Book Club. Woo!
Very exciting. This is our first session where we'll be covering an actual book. You may have caught us last time with our session 0, which was our booktube kind of intro where we talked a little bit about each other. And we appreciate everyone who watched the video, reached out to us, subscribed to the channel, made their way over to the Instagram.
Yeah.
That was very exciting. And today we're going to be going into our first official book, The Book Eaters, which was quite the doozy that you picked out for us, Dana.
You know, we'll get into it, but it was not what I was expecting, but in a good way, I think. Mostly.
Absolutely.
So we're going to start with a session recap, which for those of you who don't know is something that you do at the beginning of a session of D&D to kind of recap what happened the last time you got together and played. So while we're on that topic, though, we also got questions from people who watched our last episode as to what D&D even is. So Matt, I'm going to let you give a nice overview of what D&D is.
So D&D is an acronym for Dungeons and Dragons, which is a role-playing game where you and your friends get together and you create adventures together. You slay monsters, you go on epic quests, you find and scour treasure, you sometimes, maybe stumble into a few traps along the way. But ultimately, it's just a great time to have fun with friends and create a story together.
Mm-hmm.
And specifically, there were some questions related to what does Nat 20 mean? Nat 20 refers to the 20-sided die that you roll during Dungeons and Dragons. Dana has a lovely pillow-sized D20, which is also known as 20-sided die.
Let me find the 20. Oh, here it is.
Yeah, there we go. And when it lands on the 20 side up, it usually means it's a critical success in some way, where you gain some either an automatic success or some extra advantage that you weren't expecting in your, whether it be a persuasion roll or something along those lines. So our channel being the Nat 20 Book Club, we wanted it to be very D&D themed because we play Dungeons and Dragons once a week with each other and the rest of our friends, and we just have a great time. And we wanted to, put our own spin to our love of books and our love of D&D all into one place.
Also, because Nat 20 means you did an awesome, awesome job, this is an awesome, awesome book club.
Absolutely.
I had to be corny about it.
Of course. Dana, we're in different locations.
Yeah. Weird that, huh? So the last video that we posted, Matt and I were in the same room. You may have noticed. And that was because I was visiting him and his wife that weekend. Our D&D group got together and all played together in person, which was great. Most of us, well, all of us don't live in the same location and not even the same country anymore. So, yeah. So, that was a weekend for us to get together and play in person, which is always just a lot of fun. But now we're back in our respective states and cities. So this will be the layout for the majority of our videos, if not 95% of them.
Right. With the exception of a few special cases here and there.
Yeah. Like I know you visit this area and to see family and
yep.
Who knows? Maybe I'll just pop into Indy and be like, surprise. You want to film a video?
Hey, weirder things have happened for sure.
Yeah. But yeah, that's it for our session recap.
Yep.
And with that, we're gonna dive in to our book discussion. Are you ready, Matt?
I'm absolutely ready. Let's go.
Let's get into the book. The Book Eaters by Sunyi Dean was our first book club book that we read together. What a ride, man.
Wild.
It was wild. And it was not what I was expecting at all, but in a good way.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I didn't realize, too, that this was fantasy horror. I thought it was just fantasy.
Yeah.
I thought this was going to be cozy. It was not cozy at all.
When I read my wife the back cover of the book, she's like, why are you reading that? And then not even a chapter in, when I said what was the plot, the summary of the first chapter, she looked at me and was like, why are you all reading this? Like, I don't know where you got cozy from. There's nothing cozy about a book called The Book Eaters.
I thought it was going to be about the power of knowledge, and it's not. I mean, no, it's not. Not at all.
No. I love it. You were like, well, no.
So, anyways, we'll just briefly describe what a book eater is. And then we're just going to dive into our discussion about the themes and the character, et cetera, et cetera. So, Matt.
Spoilers.
And spoilers. Please be aware. Spoilers. Also, if you do decide to pick up the book, read the content warnings. So,
yes.
On that note, Matt, what's a book eater?
Well, a book eater is a individual who looks like a human, but have several physical differences than a normal human being. They are typically stronger, faster, more agile, and their arguably biggest difference is their diet. While we eat what we would call normal food, and even some abnormal food, the book eater's diet consists 99.9% of eating books, where they have specialty fangs that come out that allow them to either breach the spine of a book or eat individual pages of a book. And when in doing so, they're eating legitimately the words off the page and consuming them. And those words sustain them, and they also gain the knowledge from that book, which on the surface is a really cool feature. They talk about in the story about how like they needed to know the local train schedule. So they ate the train itinerary of the town, and they just now knew when all the trains left, when and where. Very convenient. But that's all that they sustain. And they eat books, their life. We do see that they have like this ink-based tea that they'll sometimes drink. They can also drink water and other like alcoholic beverages. But those are more add-ons and in addition to the main course of the books themselves. Those are not necessarily required by any stretch of the imagination. But with these book eaters, there is a sub-race or sub-genre, if you will, or a small set of them. Instead of developing book eater fangs, they instead have a long cylindrical tongue that is used to pierce the human brain and to make it into a slushy, where they then slurp the brains and gain all the knowledge, memories, and experiences of the individuals whose mind they just ate. And this subrace, they're called the Mind Eaters. They have the same, everything is pretty much the same as the book eaters, with this one very ghastly exception. Now, as you can imagine, in a race that only can survive off minds, and the book eaters being a very secluded people they have very little interaction with the outside human world, mind eaters were often killed at birth. But in recent advancements of technology, one of the families, which we'll talk about what the families are in a moment, developed a special drug that would suppress the need for mind eaters to eat minds, and that they could actually consume books like traditional book eaters would. But with the caveat that it suppresses the need, not the want. These mind eaters while under the specific medicine, became known as dragons, as the society of knights, which are book eaters who have kind of left the main family to run as intermediaries between these families, train these dragons as a way of holding power and control. And I think the best way I could describe it is if like police officers today, they have canine units, and they have those canine dogs who are able to go into places where the officers can't. That's what the Mind Eaters, or dragons as the book calls them, act as. They're basically the canine unit for the knights. Now, Dana, let's talk about these families.
The families, as they're referred to in the book, are the 6 families of book eaters in the Book Eater Society. Each family is led by a patriarch, and the book eaters in general are all struggling with reproduction issues. So each family, whenever there's a daughter born in the family, they arrange with another family a marriage to reproduce and continue the book eater species. And that's the way it's been for generations and generations. Daughters are extremely rare, so the women are treated very poorly, as you can imagine. One thing that I kept thinking, what?
They're treated like princesses, though.
Lies. That's what the patriarchy does. It lies.
We'll get into what princesses are and what that means a little bit.
Yeah. So our main character, Devin, was a daughter in one of these families, and she went through the whole process. She got married, had a child, and because there's so few women, and the women can only birth a child twice in their life, and then they're infertile after, she is taken from her first child and sent to another family to do the same thing over again.
Mm-hmm.
It's truly heartbreaking. It really is. But yeah, that's what the family is.
Yes.
And through our characters that we meet along the way, in addition to Devin, you see how it's just generational trauma. That's the best way to describe it. And all the facets that it can come across as. So it also, the book also begs the question, what is a monster? What makes someone a monster? Is it eating brains? Is it beating your wife? Is it finding human victims for your child to eat brains out of?
Or is it ritual sacrifice to commune with a higher power?
It's just, it was wild. So why don't we just dig into that, all the different monsters that we come across in the book?
So I think one of the first things the readers are met with is Devin, who is on the hunt, or I guess as we read in the first chapter, has hunted and has found the next source of sustenance for her son. Mm-hmm. She brings this individual in after spending what she usually spends multiple weeks kind of staking out, because we talk about, is she a monster? She knows she just wants her son, Kai, to survive, and he needs to eat on human brains because the family that produced this drug has gone missing. They've had a coup and they've gone under, and so the Mind Eater suppressant is no longer available. Mm-hmm. And so she wants to do no harm as much as she can. So she tries to find individuals in this world who, if they were to go missing or if they were to die, would have the least impact or waves through other people.
Does she, though? She tries to find good people.
She does try. I mean, that's Well, they do talk about how she spends a couple weeks staking out, but sometimes she's just got to do what she's got to do.
Yeah. Yeah, like the first person I think that she finds for her son is some drunk 60-something-year-old she finds on a street and invites into
Yes.
her apartment. And
Yeah.
yeah, but the first murder we see, and yes, I call it a murder because though the person may not die after having their brain eaten, they're basically in a vegetative state. You basically do kill them.
Yes.
They don't have their normal life anymore.
So it begs the question: is Devin a monster for hunting these? What we find out is, I believe, throughout the whole book ends up being 26 individuals. That
yeah. Although to be fair, two of them,
yes,
they deserve
20, 24 out of 26 individuals that her son Callie has eaten.
Yeah.
Kai, excuse me,
Kai.
has eaten.
Yeah. I mean, she's written as such a sympathetic character, though. Like, you really feel for her. She's had her first child taken from her forcibly.
Mm-hmm.
They drugged her to separate her from her child. She was abused by both of her husbands.
Mm-hmm.
Her family was not doing anything to help her, and they were just perpetuating the system they lived in, you know, as patriarchs do. And she just loves her children and wanted to do anything she could to keep them healthy and safe. And for Kai, that meant finding innocent people that he could suck their brains out of.
Yeah, 100%. And she tried to make changes, but I think the most blunt that any of the patriarch or the men ever got with her was, why would they change centuries of history and traditions for a girl?
Yeah, that she got that a lot. Why would we change this over just one person off of one silly girl's request?
Yep.
Yeah, you're perpetuating the system. That's what that is.
Well, let's talk about another kind of monster. Are mind eaters monsters inherently?
Inherently? I say no.
Mm-hmm. I would agree.
Yeah. That's like saying are sharks monsters because they eat fish in the ocean.
I'm sure some people would say that they are, or bears or whatever. Yeah, yeah. I think it's not Kai's fault or any of the other mind eaters that we reread about in the stories' fault that they are genetically created to eat minds.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that does not mean that a mind eater can't be a monster.
Yeah.
We mentioned this earlier. We do read of one mind eater who takes it so far as to say that the gift to eat minds is a gift of God, and has eating minds as a special communion, and he thus gets basically human sacrifices to eat their mind. We would all agree that's probably the actual monster of the story, not because they're a mind eater, but because of the zealousness they put behind it.
Yeah, to me, that was this character's name is Killock. Killock. We'll call him Killock. You ever just read the book and you don't know how to pronounce anybody's name, so you're like, when you read it. But anyways, Killock is from a family. He disagreed with his patriarch's rulings, I guess.
And I was gonna say he disagreed, but he had good points.
He did. Where he messed up was because he was a mind eater, he ate the patriarch's mind. Mm-hmm. And as you explains, when a mind eater when a mind eater eats a mind, that's a tongue twister.
Yes.
They subsume that person's psyche pretty much. So in eating the patriarch's mind, he took on all of that patriarch's viewpoints and it completely distorted everything. And I thought that was such like a creative way to show generational trauma and how you become your parent.
Yes. Absolutely.
Real dark, but I thought it was super creative.
Yeah. Killock originally rebelled and had this coup, and Killock is part of the family that created this drug that allowed mind eaters not having to feed on minds. They could feed on books like the rest of like their society did. And he wanted to make this drug widely available so the families no longer had to give their mind eater children to the dragons, because that was one thing that was required, that if you had a mind eater child, they would become a dragon and work for the knights. Killock's family, the
Ravenscars?
Say that again?
Ravenscars
stopped doing that because they created this drug. And then they sold it for exuberant amount of money to the families.
Capitalism, baby.
Always gets you. But Killock wanted to let this drug. So he started off as like the hero of the story. You first introduced to him, he's like, okay, these are good ideas. And then you read the next page and you see where he has somehow got consumed with this knowledge of that now that I'm in charge.
Yeah. Did a hard 180.
Yes. You talk about being a drunk with power moment.
Oh, he was for sure a cult leader. That's immediately what I thought when we were introduced to him. Like, this guy's a cultist.
Yes.
He would be the one to give everyone the poison Kool-Aid. Like, yes, you die, absolutely. You die, we all die. Like, yes, that's the vibe you get with Killock. But yeah, the other monster that I think just really got screwed over real bad was Ramsay.
Yes.
Ramsay is Devin's brother. When they were kids, they were up to shenanigans as kids do. And because Devin was a girl, she didn't get in trouble for said shenanigans. But Ramsay did. Real bad. Like, if you want to talk about the punishment not fitting the crime, this was it.
Yes. Ramsay was 10 at the time, I believe, like 2 years older than Devin.
They shipped him off to live with the knights and become a knight. And he was basically just traumatized so bad. He grew up in a super violent culture. And he became this very cold, violent person with a very one-track mind.
Yes. Definition of Stockholm Syndrome in some ways.
Yeah.
Is that he went like, the person who trained him was the person who basically forced him to get sent off and terrorized him and tortured him into the idea of, yes, I deserve to be sent off, and became Ramsay's idol. Yeah. Up until the point to where when his idol failed to meet expectation, he just killed him. And been like, now I'm in charge, because he taught me we should have no fear. And now that he showed a moment of thought, he's no longer suitable. He has fear. He must leave. He's out.
Yeah. I just felt so bad for Ramsay.
Yeah.
He is a detestable person for the majority of the book, but I just couldn't help but feel really bad for him.
What I think is the wildest thing was when he takes custody of Devin and Kai, the first thing he does is to implant an explosive device into Kai as a way to force Devin into doing his bidding of being a double agent spy.
Yeah. Yeah, there really is. Like, blood does not mean anything. Blood relation means nothing to Ramsay.
Which, if you also want to know how messed up the patriarchs and the families are, is that this method of planting a explosive device in Kai was originally a method they used to keep the daughters from running away.
Yeah, because like if they didn't want to get married or have their child taken away, like, oop, we'll stick a bomb in you.
Yeah.
Wild.
And he was like, I need Devin to do this bidding to hunt down this. So let me plant this explosive device in your son, and I have a long-range detonator where anywhere on the planet you go, if you don't check in with me, your son will no longer exist.
It's dark, man. I thought this was going to be a cozy book. I don't know why.
Dana, you can pick them.
I get that a lot. My mom always tells me that I read weird books.
So a lot of this book talks about, like, gets you thinking of who's the real monster. Like, is it Ramsay, or is he just a product of his childhood? Mm-hmm. Is it Killock and his unable to separate himself from family and generational trauma? Is it Kai for having to eat people's minds just to survive? Or is it Devin, who, knowing that people are going to die, or at the very least be a vegetable for the rest of their life, still goes out and for 18 months spends her time hunting individuals to feed to her son? And that's where a lot of the main themes really. Yeah. Who's the actual bad guy in this story?
Yeah. Who was the worst monster to you, Matt?
Mm-hmm.
No, actually, like who was the
worst monster?
Who do you think was Killock. The worst one?
I think it was Killock.
Yeah.
Day in and day out. The whole, very much the, I am going to do communion with God through these ritual sacrifices because I'm a greater and higher mortal being. That's religion has been used as a way to hold power over individuals and to do terrible things throughout all of history. Yeah. And this is just yet another cult leader who is trying to skew religious texts and teachings to basically further an agenda.
And his teachings made no sense.
No sense whatsoever.
No sense at all.
And you compile that with that he didn't start that way. He had the exact opposite ideology until he consumed his patriarch father.
Yeah.
Was one thing interesting that Killock with his sister made a pact to actually cut off their tongues. So they were going to be unable to eat minds, that they would require them to feed off books and take the medicine. But he decided that was inconvenient.
He was like, nope, I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm going to eat people now.
Yeah. Once he became the patriarch, he's like, I don't need to. Yeah. That was all good and done to get support. But now that I'm in charge, let's do something else. To me, that was the biggest monster. Yeah. It was Killock.
Yeah. To me, he just made a mistake. He should not have eaten his father's brain. And then it would have been better. But no, he had to do that. And I'm not sure it really said why he did that, why he didn't kill his father a different way. But yeah, I think that's where he messed up.
Yeah.
So for me, the biggest monster is Ramsay.
Yeah.
I just cannot imagine treating my sibling like that. Like that's or like anyone that I'm related to like that. I guess maybe I'm just too close with my family, but I did not like that at all. That made me super uncomfy. But yeah, for me, it was Ramsay.
No, and I get that. I get that entirely too. I mean, it's a coin flip.
Yeah, they all kind of suck. And it's not their fault.
I think while Kai and Devin have their own issues, right? Not saying that they're saints by any stretch of the imagination. They're just trying to survive.
Yeah.
Killock and Ramsay definitely are abusing a situation for power.
Yeah. Yeah, they are. We're all talking about men in a patriarchy. There was one more that we didn't talk about, which was Jaro. Jaro.
Oh yeah.
Who is like the only normal man to come out of this patriarchal system.
Yes.
Yeah, I thought he was lovely. What a nice person.
He introduced Devin into ketchup to help kind of like ease the taste of glossy modern pages of books.
Yeah.
Which was just a fun thought that used condiments because glossy pages taste differently than paper pages of old text, and so you put some ketchup on it to ease the taste. That's
It was just a little flair added to the world. That was fun. But yeah, Jarrow is the one who helps Devin escape with her son after Ramsay has been using them for his own devices. And I just thought it was really interesting how he was just a person who didn't fit into the patriarchal system because he is asexual.
I believe so, yeah. Not attracted to anything, just wants to exist in the space that he exists in.
Yeah. So he was treated very differently from everyone else in his family. And it sounded like he was only really close to one of his sisters, or his only sister.
Yes.
And then everyone else just kind of ignored him. So it really gave the impression that he was not impacted by this patriarchal system that everyone else in his family was exposed to as heavily. I think that made a lot of difference in how he ended up as an adult compared to like Ramsay and Killock.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Very much because he was someone who like followed all the rules, but they knew he was never going to be a patriarch. They knew he was never going to be, be wedded because of his sexual orientation. Very much never had a reason to be put into pressure situations up until he decided to protect Devin. And then we see him get shipped off to one of the other families later. But still a much nicer punishment than we see Ramsay, who disobeyed orders and then became a knight who was brainwashed into thinking that everyone is wrong and only he is right.
One thing that just stunned me throughout this book was how little the adults generally seemed to care about the development of children.
Yeah.
I was just like shocked. I was like, no wonder this society has been stagnant for so long. Like, no wonder they think they're not creative. Like, they don't.
Yeah.
They purposely get themselves stuck over and over again, which is, like the whole point of, or the whole reason why generational trauma persists. So I thought that it was just glaring the whole time I was reading this book, But
it's definitely a good read. Do we want to move into our session notes?
Sure. Do you want to give a little note about what a session note is?
Yeah, our session notes are going to be where we're going to give our kind of final thoughts, ratings. I think we did our ratings a little earlier, but we'll do them again, and we'll introduce our next book for the next month's session.
Yeah.
So our session notes. My final thoughts of the book was that I think it's a really interesting read. It gets you in a lot of different topics and issues that you see today in modern society, because it also helps that the book takes place in today's world, just like if there was on the fringes of society of this were this race of book eaters. Would I read it again? Probably not. Like I said earlier, I gave it 5 3 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. I thought it was great, but I don't need to see where the story goes if there ever was a sequel.
I don't think it needs a sequel either. I think
I don't think so either.
there's enough there to make you think about, like, oh yeah, like I can imagine the characters doing this and this, but I don't think there's enough there that would warrant another book. But yeah, I'm with you though. I would not read it again. I thought it was really good though. I loved the writing. I thought the writing was beautiful. I thought the world was really interesting that Sunyi Dean created. I thought it could have been fleshed out a little bit more. Like one thing was like, I would have liked to know more about like where book eaters came from. It's like very blasé in her writing of the origins of the book eaters. It's just kind of like, it's almost
a creator left them on the earth.
Yeah. It's like, oh, what the hell's a collector or creator or whatever he's called, or her? Like we don't know, or it. Like, is it aliens? No one knows.
I was going to say, I thought it was very apt for our first book because did you read the about the author section? Sunny D is an artistic author of fantasy fiction. Originally born in the States and raised in Hong Kong, she now lives in Yorkshire with her children. When not reading, running, falling over in yoga, or rolling D20s, she sometimes escapes the city to wild swim in the lonely dales.
Yeah.
Another cool RPG fan.
Oh, yeah. But no, yeah, I really liked it. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. Just remember, folks, our ratings are arbitrary. They mean something only to us.
And if it's a 5 for you, let us know. Like, tell us what you liked about it.
If you hated it, let us know.
If you were also reading the first chapter and go, why did you pick this book? We're right there with you.
To be fair, I gave you like 4 books to pick from, and you picked this one.
I picked 2, and then you went ahead into the tiebreaker for her.
What was the other one?
Iron Widow.
Oh. Yeah, I didn't pick that one because I think it's going to be a series. So, but we can cut that part out. But anyways, Matt, what's our next book?
Our next book is Legends Lattes by Travis Baldry.
Mm-hmm. I've heard so much about this book. There's even a prequel out now. It's super popular.
An actual cozy fantasy book. Not a cozy fantasy book.
You know what else about this book that I was like, oh, this was not maybe the best pick? This is set during Christmas time.
Yes.
June.
I mean, this is not a Christmas book. It's no more a Christmas book than like what Die Hard is a Christmas movie. It's fine. Just because it happened to be set at Christmas.
It's just, maybe it was just me that was slightly bothered just by the timing of when we read it. But I mean, again, it's my own fault.
You heard it here first, folks. Yeah. It's Dana's fault.
I own up to my mistakes. But yeah, we hope you join us next time when we discuss Legends and Lattes. And thanks for joining us. Have a Nat 20 day.
Absolutely. Until next time.
See ya.
See you later.